else.
No, seriously, guys.
What? Have you
Is it
become a
real?
ghost?
What's going on?
Poltergeist.
It's okay if you just stop doing that.
It's like when when you're like, doctor, my elbow hurts when I do this. Stop doing that. Boom.
Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the ever-talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glantz. Today, we take a look at how to audit your design business from top to bottom. Often, we can be so bogged down in the day-to-day work, we don't take time to take a step back and see what's actually working and what isn't within our design business. Today's chat gives you plenty of actionable tips for how to get your design business running like a well-oiled machine. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So this week we're talking about how to audit your design business, essentially. And what I mean by this is we've had various guests on the show, for example, and I think it is truly human nature for us all to get stuck in a rut. We are creatures of habit, and before we know it, we're just kind of bogged down. We've got the blinkers on, and we're just cracking through our day-to-day work. And very, very rarely do we take a step back and actually audit and look at how we're doing things and if they could be better. And I think it's very good use of time because, for example, when we had Meg on recently, that was a 1-hour chat, and she's fundamentally changed her pricing structure, her burnout, her stress levels. Like, it's all heading in a very positive direction from the updates we've been getting from her. And that's 1 hour of stepping back, whereas it's so easy for months or even years to elapse of just being on the hamster wheel, going round and round and round and never actually jumping off to take a look at it and audit what you're doing. So thought it would be a good idea to jump into that topic. And speaking of hamster wheels, we have our guinea pig or hamster as young Ian Barnard. Because we were talking through this and Ian was saying, well, why don't we use his former design career when he was back in his freelancing days and try and apply some of what we're going to talk about today to that, just to make it that much more applicable for all the listeners. So, Ian, how young were you at this time? Because you're still quite a young bloke, right?
You're a little youngster.
Yeah. Thanks for the pleasantries. So before I started doing like learning ClickFee in 2012, 2013.
Just remember whenever Downton Abbey came out.
my son was born in 2012. So it was the end of 2012. And so that was, it didn't happen overnight. So I was still in part of 2013, 2014 when I actually started getting a little bit of work in that area.
Oh, I thought we were going to go with graphic design, Ian. So we're going early lettering, Ian.
Yeah. Or no, I was thinking we could go where I was before I started doing ClickFee.
Okay.
And
cool.
so where my company was.
Yep.
So I was, because you wanted my age. So my age was 30. My brain's got, it was like, where were we? 2018. I was like 33, 34. So I'm still old. I'm still older than you, Tom, which is scary. Yeah. And so at that point I'd been freelancing for I've been doing freelance for 2 days for the past 7 years. So I'd been doing that, and I'd been doing it for about so I'd had a range of clients which I'd built up over time. I got some from my previous employee, so I had like a restaurant locally. These are all mainly local, or just a few that were like online. I was doing some website stuff for a a platform that needed design doing to every site that they would then give to someone. And I was also doing some local web design work for another company, and then just generally doing like business cards for local companies. And what?
That just sounds really boring.
It was. And the thing is,
say what you mean, mate.
But the thing is, that's what a lot of designers have to do, though, isn't it? You know that.
It's true. I did a lot of boring stuff.
Yeah, I did that stuff as well. Local
And
restaurants.
I'd still be doing that stuff, and
I did too.
you know, and so I would get work. So I'll go through how I got work, what I was doing to promote myself, if any, and then hopefully
what was your company called, or was it just you?
Ian Barnard Design.
Ooh.
I'm so original.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm starting to love everything about this. Okay, so we got Ian Barnard Design, fronted up by the man himself, Ian Barnard, 33-year-old guy. He'll do your websites. He'll do your business cards.
And my title would change every few months. So it'd be like visual designer, graphic design, web design,
with visuals.
Nice.
Okay.
Catering to all your all graphic needs. So I never advertised. I didn't know how. I never advertised. I didn't know how to. I thought the yellow pages was a waste of time because
I feel like this is so funny because it's like looking in a mirror of my own younger self.
Yes, exactly.
I was just thinking, luckily it's me and not like one of our listeners here, just like tearing apart.
Oh,
so
that's
sorry.
true.
It is. It's like looking in a mirror, but when you say it so droll like that, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, how did any of us like continue with this?
How are any of us here? Honestly,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at who you
yourself.
How I see myself in you.
Yeah. That sounds bad.
So I'd have a Facebook page where I just like post, and I would just post work. You know, I'd do some business cards, and I'd post that on my Facebook page. I do no, personal work. It would just be like, oh, here's a website, a design I've done for, it would be really like mundane companies like metal manufacturing, or I would get work through other people recommending me, whether I'd done a website for someone for, £200 for like a 20-page website or whatever I was charging at the time. And I had a website, but it wasn't particularly glamorous.
Fuck you, Oates. Come on. Oh, Ian, sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
Keep going, Ian.
I'm here, buddy.
Yeah, I would have no strategy of how I was going to grow my business.
So I guess the first question would be, how are you getting clients?
How did you get a wife for being so boring?
No, you know what it is? We all actually, when you put it like that, it's like a mirror, man.
It's honestly flooding back to me, like down to the T.
Dude,
I'm so sorry.
This is the most honest designers episode ever, and you're just painting it so gray. And then, like, even though we're laughing, you continue with a straight face, like even a little bit of frustration as you continue to paint that gray picture, and it just is so hard. But I'm sorry.
And you know what I think it is as well? It's like, no, I think we're all realizing, like, really what we did.
No, man, it's like that song, you're like singing my song with his fingers, like you're just like, you're singing my song, buddy.
Oh, man.
Not a very good song, but it's like...
No, it's a bleak song. Oh, yeah, you're right though, Lisa. It's like only when someone paints that picture, you're like, man, it really was like that.
Yes, it really is.
It did feel like very much like, I was getting, I was doing stuff for my church, and that was getting me a few other bits from other churches. Maybe it was all based on other people seeing my work
Yeah, word of mouth.
And then, calling me up. Oh, we saw your work here, and so we got in contact.
Okay, so hold on. How would they figure that out? They'd see the work and talk to the business and be like, "Who did your design work?"
Yes.
And then get in touch.
So they might see a flyer. They might see if it's a business card. Oh, Bob the Builder recommended your
Okay,
business cards.
So was it word of mouth?
It was mainly word of mouth. So
Yeah.
randomly, someone might go through my website and say, "Oh, we found you after." The thing is, I wasn't ranking very highly on Google, so it wasn't as though they just like type in designer and I'd pop up.
Sure.
And did you have enough work? I mean, that word of mouth, was it serving you?
I was literally earning the same amount every year, like maybe a little
For 7
increase. Yeah, for 7 years.
Okay, and you were doing 2 days a week, right?
So I was doing 2 days a week for 7 years and 3 days a week for employed stuff.
Okay.
When I went freelance, for the first couple of years, it was it was a small increase in revenue, but it was the same.
Are you comfortable to be transparent with what it was?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I think it was this is before I had to take the tax off.
Yeah.
So it was like 25,000 pounds.
Okay, so that's
So 40,
a little over $30,000.
more like 40, isn't it?
Maybe 35. Yeah, with the exchange rate right now. Back then probably would have been more like 40. And so you're earning essentially, let's go with dollars because a lot of American listeners out there. You're earning nearly $40,000 a year from 2 days work a week, right?
Oh no, that was fully freelance.
Oh, okay, got you.
Sorry, I can't remember exactly. So like the 2 days a week was just supplementing the stuff I was being employed to. I had to do those 2 days a week, otherwise it wouldn't be enough to come in. I'm talking about. So if we just look at the 2 years when I was full time freelance.
Yes.
The calligraphy side hadn't taken off. It was just doing, whatever I got, the range of stuff I was doing at the time. So,
okay,
yeah, I would, and like my
and there was obviously enough to sustain you, right? I don't know what the cost of living is.
So
I would say just about, right?
So I was trying to get. The reason was like I was trying to get in like £3,000. Oh, hang on, I'm not gonna be able to work this out in dollars again. So I was trying to get £3,000 in so that I could. So the tax in the UK is like 22% for the earning I was on. So I would try and earn 3,000 so I could put 1,000 into the savings to pay for my tax at the end of the tax year. So I'd be like living off £2,000, and that would sort of cover mortgage and the bills, and I'd only have a tiny bit maybe left over.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was just literally ticking over.
I think the first thing to get into before we do the kind of hypothetical audit here is not only is this so familiar for all of us, hence we were like giggling school children for the first part, but I would wager it's very, very real for quite a lot of the listeners. And I know a lot of our listeners, and I've seen their social media profiles and stuff, and this seems to hold some truth. I'm getting a lot of feelings coming back. Could you tell us and the listeners how that felt at the time where, it's not like things are going like a rocket, you're kind of perhaps scraping by a little bit financially, you might not be feeling super inspired. Like, how did that feel day to day?
I think I was just because the thing is I had like and we've probably talked about this in a different episode about the pressures of things that go outside of work, but they're quite important because I had I had my wife and my 2 children. My wife was doing part-time work as a speech therapist, and 2 children to look after as well, or to provide for, and so that's that sort of there's like an added pressure of that you've got 3 lives, yourself and 3 other lives to cater for, and so it was ticking over, but it meant that we didn't really have like a great deal of like savings or stuff put aside for if like the car went wrong or house sort of things.
Yeah.
So
And
stressful.
could you, like, from a time point of view and stress point of view, could you manage more work if you had it?
I think the problem was I felt like I get enough work in, and I wasn't charging, like we were discussing in Meg's
Yeah.
episode. I wasn't charging near enough the amount I was probably worth.
Okay. Yeah.
I was probably charging like £150 a day.
Yeah, that's nowhere near enough
I know, and
for a designer.
I do a lot of work that was over and above what it was created for, but I'm not very good at saying stuff that trying to because I was like hammering you for the words that Meg could use. I was not
Yes.
very she really, that really helped her, because like we don't know how to say
Certain
things.
yeah.
To the request, I need to put my rates up, or this is how much I charge. And if someone replies back, well, that's quite a lot of money, I then go, okay, I'll reduce it. It's I really
Yeah.
struggle with the wording of how to communicate, and I always felt. And also, I felt like I was just a mediocre designer, so I didn't really feel like I could charge very much.
I think that's a very good point, because I was in that boat, and quite rightly, you don't have the confidence to push because you probably don't have the skill yet.
But
Because
I've been working for like 14 years up to that point.
Why did you think that you weren't good?
I don't know. I think because I was, you get that comparison with other designs that you see, whether that's, it doesn't have to be, lettering wasn't really a thing when I was doing my freelance, or I wasn't aware of it. And so it was, for me, it was like, that website looks amazing. Why does mine look that good? That logo looks super cool. Mine looks just like a, I wasn't, the stuff I was doing was okay. People liked it. It was, I could give the client what they were after, but it wasn't like, that sort of will get featured on Logo Pond, or do you remember that? I was like, I was like, oh, how do they come up? There was these logos that kept popping around, the best logos of 2012 or 2013, and you'd see them, you go, that is just so clever how they've intertwined a dog and cat and made it a letter or something like that.
Yeah.
And I would just be like, they're, Helvetica new, light and bold sort of thing.
Well, I think, okay, besides auditing the business from how you're spending your time and all that kind of stuff, you also have to think of auditing your thoughts. I think as designers and artists, we always make that mistake of comparing ourselves. And it sounds like, I could be wrong, that you were comparing yourself to this massive agency that had like 20 creatives working on this huge brand, and they had, I don't know, 160 hours that they spent on designing this logo, and you're a one-man show, and you got limited resources, the client's only paying you X, and there's levels of what you can achieve in that scenario versus what they can achieve. So I think we spend too long comparing ourselves to think. It's like comparing a Beetle to a Ferrari. It's like you can't. It's not the same. The one's got money and the other one doesn't. I don't know. It's just.
I noticed something that related to this, Lisa, that in comparing that, I was listening to some top 50 music in the United States yesterday, and I said, let's see the album covers. I had never heard of these artists. Mostly, it was like the only person I heard of was Ariana Grande, and like Drake was all over the charts. It was crazy. But I didn't know how any of that sounded, and I was like, let's look at some of this artwork. And I started looking at the artwork, and this is all done mostly by designers and sometimes artists or both. And I realized, whoa, the stuff of like my heroes on Dribbble or Instagram is not the stuff that is like in a lot of this work. And my point to that being that oftentimes we compare ourselves to things that clients, it has not even entered their universe of things to compare us to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on that point, you mentioned Logo Pond, Ian. Often the top featured ones there are hypothetical logos, where someone's had a great idea where they're like, I'll take the dog and
For
the cat
this.
and turn it into a silhouette of this. And that's
Yeah.
great, but that's not an actual business. And it's quite rare that they...
Clients kill the good ones.
Yeah. Well, either clients kill the good ones or they come to you and there is nothing you can do that's that wacky. They just want a functional logo.
And actually, I was on a site the other day of someone I respected, and it was like, it says underneath it, just for fun. And all the ones that were like, oh, that's really clever, were just for fun. You know, actually, they're
Exactly.
not.
Exactly. That's the thing. I think we waste too much precious creative energy on stuff that's not actually real.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay, so talking to younger Ian here, what would he have said was the biggest problem or the biggest goal? Is it that you wanted to earn more money? Is it that you wanted more and better clients? Is it that you wanted to feel more confident in your work or more fulfilled in your work or more interesting projects? Like, what would the number one thing have been?
Do you know what? There's two things that I really wanted, and they're not the same as well. One was I used to go around to see my friend's dad, who worked in his back garden, in a studio in his back garden. And I used to go around there. He was like, you know, to see what he was doing and to chat to him and chat through things. And I really wanted my own studio in the garden. Oh no, one, to work for myself and to have a studio in the garden. And so yeah, 18 years later, I'm finally,
You have one.
well, it's nearly
Woohoo!
there. And I'm freelance, or you know. But another one was actually just to work with some of the brands that I really respected or really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it sounds like money wasn't the top thing. Obviously, it's always nice to have more money.
Yeah, for me, I don't really, you know. I think about, you know, we're looking at our bills, like that's something we need to get in control of, and you know, we spend a lot of money on food. Just
yeah, you and me both.
But not a great deal on other things. I don't buy, you know, I just buy functional clothing. I'm not really like something I have to have like the latest sneakers or the latest, you know, whatever it is. I get a phone that's functional for me, so you know, and I normally get it secondhand because I just don't like paying a lot of money for stuff. You know, so there's not like a great deal. I really, you know, we've got like our car is just functional. I don't really worry about what it is.
That's a good way to be.
So yeah, so I've got, you know, so it wasn't like I've got to get more money because I want to buy more stuff. It wasn't really that. It was more, I suppose, it changed, I think, when my kids came along to, you know, they are going to need
financial security.
Yeah, and then also when it gets into now, you know, when we get into like school time and clubs and stuff like that, and classes, like my daughter's doing ballet, my son is starting football in September, and so there's all these like additional things that you have to pay for, and I suppose it was, you know, thinking into the future, that's stuff I need to really be saving for, so, or be earning more money. And I never thought, because my wife earned a little bit more than me when she was full time, because she was working for the NHS, the health service, and she was a specialist. So she spent 3 years at university and, you know, placements and everything like that. And she is a speech therapist, and she, you know, she was earning more than me, but we thought she was getting too stressed in that, so we decided she'd go freelance, or, you know, she would work for herself. But she wanted to be, you know, the stay-at-home mum and look after children and just work, you know, a few days, and I was quite happy with that, you know. But that meant I needed to try and take on more work or stuff like that, and that was hard. You know, it was obviously looking into the future where we were talking this scenario, doing the lettering and stuff has really helped me financially. But at the time, it was like I just didn't know how do you grow a graphic design business, because I just felt I was stuck in like local work. You know, I didn't know how to get agency stuff. I would, you know, the only time I would ever like be, you know, a couple of days a year I might go into my old company, my first job, back when I first started, because they knew me and they knew the people around me in their system. I could come in and I could just take over and do a few days, paid work doing that. But I wasn't getting any other work from anywhere else really. So it was just a continuous. It was just like a ticking over of work.
And I love that you used the word stuck, because again, I think that's so applicable to so many people, and I definitely felt like that as well. And you think, yeah, how am I ever going to get out of this ticking over of local businesses? And yeah, you can't see that, how to break through that ceiling almost.
Yeah. So and it was just I was getting print work, but I didn't know how I would just charge them what the cost it was for there, because I struggled with putting my markup on it. So so in everything I was doing was just like you had the portion of trying to charge your day rate or hourly rate, and that wasn't enough. And then I wasn't making a markup on any of the print stuff, and so
can I ask why? Why you didn't charge?
I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, oh, do I charge a percentage or do I just put a bit on top?
But were you organising the printing for them?
Yeah, so I'd have a company that I'd probably use regularly because I knew the quality was good. And
okay, so did you charge for a management fee, like
no,
fee?
There was none of that. I just because
insane.
I know, but I didn't know. And there's probably other designers who just don't know this thing. How do you? Should you, or is it right to?
Yes, you should.
I was always worried that I might get found out that you're like, oh, you added 20% on to how much these print things cost, and people would go like,
definitely.
What, how come it's costing me this much when I can get it for £10 on Vistaprint? And so I wasn't very good at justifying why I was doing things.
Ian, so I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to pretend that I'm working with you back in the day, and I think this is so indicative. We get the same thing in our business. Every business has this, where it does tick along, and before you know it, a lot of time elapses with nothing changing. And the way I see it is, and I say this to my team all the time, there's reactive work and proactive work. And the reactive work is dealing with what comes in, doing your day-to-day work, and you're not really moving the needle forward. You're ticking along, you're getting paid, but that's it. And the proactive work is work which you're strategically doing to move that needle forward, to break through that ceiling, no matter what it might be. And that can be small stuff. It doesn't have to be big and scary and intimidating. But I think the way to do it is you factor that into your day or your week or however you want to do it. So it could be that you work Monday to Thursday on the regular stuff, but you block off Friday entirely for proactive stuff. Or it could be that you fit in 1 hour or 2 hours a day for the proactive stuff. And to give you an example, like our social media team here at the minute, very, very easy for months to elapse and new stuff isn't really getting shipped or iterated on. It's just ticking along with them doing a sort of generally good day-to-day job, right? So I've introduced 2-week sprint projects where we've come up with a roadmap for the next 2 to 3 months of stuff where we know it would be a good step forward. And they know within those 2 weeks, they need to find the proactive time rather than just tick along day to day, find the proactive time to get those things done. And so then stuff starts to happen. And for example, one of those 2-week sprints was setting up and launching the social profiles for this podcast. That's the cool thing. That's now building an audience and getting engagement. And that's a cool thing to have. It's not going to flip the world on its head, but it's a little step in the right direction. And that never would have been launched if we were just ticking along in reactive mode. So by having that proactive 2-week sprint, that got ticked off. And they add up. So when you have 25 of them in a year, that's a lot of little projects which have been released and start to really add up over time. And you can apply the same thing with your creative business. So I think you would start by looking at your overall goals, and then you reverse engineer those into steps which you can take. And then the constraint is that we're all human and we all have finite time. So I'm sure we could sit and list 500 things that would have helped your business, but obviously you need to pick the ones which are most doable and are going to have the most impact. And in many cases, you start with the low hanging fruit, right? So you start with the easy small wins, but at least they're proactive, because it sounds like you're on an almost like 7-year plateau here. And that's probably because you were stuck in reactive mode. So if you said, well, I'm going to work 9 to 5, but from 5 to 7 every single day, that's my proactive time window, no matter what. The same way I brush my teeth in the morning, I'm going to get this done. Then whatever your goals are, whether it's like, okay, well, I've got my hit list of clients, which are the next step up. It might not be Nike, but it's going to be better than Joe Blogs down the road. It's that little step up.
Yeah, but how do you get there? Like, you say, here's your goals, but okay, say, for instance, you wanted to, say you wanted to work with more clients in London. I work outside of London.
Yep.
I'm an hour's train journey to London, so it's not just an easy, quick pop in, because, I'd be in design cuts all the time. But, so how would I go about doing that?
Well, go on, Lisa.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say you would kind of break it down in terms of break it down. In terms of what is like literally like a 5-year-old task, I guess. What would it take to get to those steps? It would mean either phoning somebody. Okay, so if I have to phone somebody, I need to set time aside. If it's like making appointments, okay, so how do I find the person to make the appointment? Maybe I need to spend half an hour every day on LinkedIn to find the right person. So it's like it's kind of like looking at each task and then setting.
Can you break that down a bit smaller? Because I'm still like, I'm be on LinkedIn. I'm like, well, what do I search for? What might?
Okay, so let me try. So
yeah.
Sorry, I'm playing Mr.
It's fine.
It's good. You must ask.
Because someone gave me a bit of advice, but unless it's drilled down to the actual, like really like minimal steps. So like,
okay.
Yes.
So let's say next month you're going to say July is going to be the month of trying to land slightly bigger and better clients. So I'm going to split that month into 4 weeks. And in week 1, that's going to be the research week. So I've got 5 days in that week, and each day has 2 hours. And I'm going to spend those 2 hours researching. So day 1 might be Google. So I'm going to jump on Google and search for London businesses doing XYZ. I'm going to basically just jump on and search around and try and find mid-sized businesses and think about the niches. Or maybe day 1 is thinking, what kinds of businesses do I want to work for? You said before, like, I want to work with cool brands that interest me. So maybe day 1, you spend 2 hours mind mapping that on your desk and brainstorming and go, okay, well, actually, I'm kind of interested in, like, I don't know, companies about like BMXs and stuff like that. So let's run with that example. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm interested in BMX companies because that's a hobby and they'd be a joy to work for. So that took 2 hours to kind of reach that point. So then on the Tuesday of that first week, you start Googling BMX companies. You come up with a list from Google and you can refine it by location and that kind of thing. And so suddenly you've got your hit list of, say, 20 BMX companies. So then the next day you go on LinkedIn and you search those companies on LinkedIn and you start finding the founders and the people who would be the key decision makers at those companies if it's advertised, and you come up with that hit list. Then the next day you decide, okay, how are you going to reach out to each one? And so you have a little spreadsheet and you have the companies there, you've got the decision maker, you've got ways to reach them and which way you think might be the most effective. And then the next day it's like, okay, well, these people I'm going to phone, these people I'm going to email, these people I'm going to hit up on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And so you've reached the end of that week, and your first week, you've gone from nothing. You could have just been in reactive mode and not been moving the needle, but now you've got a hit list of potential clients and you kind of know how you want to go after them. So week 2 of that month is like, okay, I'm going to really get down my pitch. So it could be like day 1, it's going to be, I'm going to draft up a sample email script, which I'm going to send. Day 2 could be, I'm going to, bullet point what I think I should say on the phone and what possible objections there could be and work out my counters to them, and just have a
See,
vague idea of what I'm going to say.
That bit there would never enter my mind, like that thing about, because like if someone said, "Oh, you need to write out a proposal," I'd be like, "No."
Yeah.
So I suppose for me, it was like find someone who can help you write a proposal.
Yeah. Okay, so that works.
And I'm just trying to. I'm not saying it's bad advice. I'm just saying that there's going to be other people who struggle with.
Struggle with
100%. So I was just about to say. So the next day, if this was me, this stuff doesn't really come natural to me either, to be honest. So I would force myself to do it, and then the next day, I would actually get a friend or a family member or a loved one to basically hear me say it to them. And I would be like, can I just say this like 20 times to you so that by the time I actually call someone, I at least have rehearsed it and I'm not saying it for the first time and kind of spluttering over my words. And then you can say, right, the next day, let's do it again. But this time I want you to be like the world's biggest douche to me and try and shut me down any way you can. And I want to see what objections you feel they could rub. And so you kind of have a bit of fun with it. It's a bit of theatre, even though it's nerve-wracking. It's with someone you trust. So now 2 weeks have gone by. You've got your hit list of people. You've got ways to reach them. You've got rough scripts. You've rehearsed it. You're a step further ahead, right? So then somehow in weeks 3 and 4, you get out there and you put in the time and the work, reaching out to these people. You keep a list of who you reached out to, who you couldn't get hold of, alternative ways to reach them. You keep notes on the people who you reach. Some are interested, others are kind of on the fence. Others say, get back to me next week. You follow up with the people you need to follow up with. The ones who are keen, you get everything over that you need to with them about like proposals and pricing, and you start trying to move it forward. So over 4 weeks, you've been very strategic about moving that needle forward somewhere in a positive direction.
Do you do this?
And
Tom?
if you didn't, yeah.
Because you seem like the type that would do it, like just from interacting with you. I very much like can picture this is how you think things out. My objection to this would be, all of this sounds incredibly, for me, not something I want to do. It's like really boring.
Yeah, I don't think I could make it. I wouldn't make it all 4 weeks.
Like how do you get? Yeah, so like how if you're like me and Ian, you're like, oh no, 4 weeks of that, you might as well ask me to like work on becoming an Olympic athlete and like getting on a diet and running for like 2 hours a day. Like there's just no way I'm making spreadsheets and calling.
Maybe we can. Yeah,
you could do it. You could do it the Lisa Glantz version and just like literally pick up the phone without.
Yeah, but that is completely something I wouldn't do.
Same thing.
But that is the only way I would do it because. I mean, if I had to think about it, I'd talk myself out of it.
Okay, so what I would say is there's two sides to this. One is that everyone's different. So I was going to caveat what I said by saying that would probably be somewhere in my approach when I was in this younger phase of figuring it out and feeling unsure. And that would be because I would be scared just to go and start cold calling people. The other side is, if you want new clients and you're not getting them through word of mouth, you're going to have to either do some marketing, which by the sound of it, you didn't really have the funds for, or you're going to have to go and pitch yourself. So you just have to get over that. If you want things to change, you have to change something. You have to do the uncomfortable. Lisa did it. People do it every day. It's not natural for any of us, but it works.
Can I stop? Hang on. Is there any, because like when you say you didn't have the budget for marketing, I'm like, but what would I do with it if I had the budget? I'd like, what does that look like? They say, do some marketing. And I'm like, how do I market myself? I have no clue, apart from like putting an ad in the Yellow Pages, which is redundant now, I feel. And
I get intimidated by that too, because there's companies like one, I won't use any names other than AdRoll. And when I use them, I spent thousands only to find that they admitted it wasn't set up properly, but there's companies like that because people are so intimidated.
Hold on,
and confused.
This is interesting, by the way, because we had a bad experience with them too.
Oh yeah, I had a horrible experience with them.
Yeah,
and the response was not good. In my opinion, no, I'm not saying it's fact. My opinion was that I wasn't happy with it, but
yeah.
But my point is, there's whole companies that manage this because you put your Facebook pixel on things, and then like somehow you have to track it to revenue. But then like when you do try to track it to revenue, like it'll take it as revenue, even if like they were already going to buy, but it just happened to show up in a corner of their screen somewhere, and they never even paid any attention to it. And then I'm like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, and you know what? When you feel stuck and you're not doing anything remarkable, you're just offering a kind of good service but nothing standout, marketing doesn't often help that much either. Like it can, but you know what I mean? It's not going to go like the rocket. I guess my point is, in the key for me is that reactive proactive mindset. And however you get there, let's just say, you go, okay, I want more money. Maybe that's your aspiration. So then it's like, okay, we'll either work more hours or up your prices or both. And then reverse engineer the key steps from them. So maybe it's like, well, up my prices is as simple as, talking to my current clients and upping my prices with them and setting a new onboarding for new clients where here's my price and here's how I deal with your objections. So that's kind of an easy one, but scary to do.
I wouldn't be able to email my original clients and say, oh, by the way, I'm increasing my prices.
Well, you could do. Meg just did it. People do it every day. But what I mean is, just by ticking along, you're going to plateau. So you need to work out what it is you want, the kind of main steps to get there. And I only went super granular because you were like, tell me specifics. And that's just kind of off the top of my head, probably how I would do it. I'd just turn it into a little thing to chip away at. Lisa would pick up the phone. You guys might do it a totally different way. But ultimately, I would have a bit of paper stuck on my wall with whatever my proactive step was to move the needle for that week or that month or whatever it might be. So every day it's staring me in the face, up your prices or get more clients or put money in the jar so I can save for a log cabin, because actually that's what would make me happiest, doing what I'm doing now but in a cool home studio. Whatever it might be, you just need to have that staring you in the face. So it's like, that is the thing I need to get to move the needle. Because otherwise 6 months goes by in the blink of an eye and it's like, I'm exactly where I was before.
The thing is, I was just like, the only marketing, I was looking at other designers' marketing, and all they were doing was like, in the back of the weekly thing that comes round.
No, there's much better things you can do that is actually more in line with our field. You can, especially if you don't like seeing people face to face or picking up the phone, you can create some interesting. Okay, so instead of paying the newspaper fee or the Facebook ad fee, you can spend the same amount of money into creating something really interesting, like whether it's a t-shirt or, I don't know, a poster or some fancy kind of gimmicky design that in a nutshell explains what you do, but is really exciting and interesting, and you get that delivered, like literally hand delivered to the person that you think would want your services, and that they'd be impressed. I mean, I'd look at that and think, wow, this person's like found out who I was, is really creative, and his work is good, blah blah blah.
The only problem with that
you didn't
is that you go down the rabbit hole of which constantly distracted me, was rebranding myself, and like you'd have to like, I'm not happy with this.
Yes, this is so much fun. How do I redesign everything?
Yeah.
I know.
I think there's an overlying philosophy that's like dead simple around this entire thing, which is, I think Jay Abraham had originally said it. He's like a marketing motivational Zig Ziglar type dude. And he had said, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result from what you're doing. Yeah. So for you, I feel like your strength, Ian, is you have done tons of different stuff.
Actually, can I pause you there a minute? I just remembered I did have some vectors. I'd done like some icons and some like random I thought were illustrations, but they weren't really, on Shutterstock. But I was only getting like $50 a month.
3 cents.
So I never thought that was going to be a but revenue.
The point is, you tried that. You did that. Then you tried putting something on marketplaces. And seeing how things did on marketplaces, like you were willing to do that. And then you decided to like do letter. I mean, you kept trying all sorts of different things. And sure enough, I think there's a 100% correlation between the fact that your life changed and the fact that you tried a lot of things. And that seems to be all of us have done something dramatically different. No one ever does the same thing. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah. Boom.
And actually, it was that too. It was I think it was, I mentioned in the past one where I came to the realization that I hated is a strong word, but there was quite a lot of design I didn't like. And I was like, it was only because I was good at it, sort of medium way, that I did it. so I was a jack of all trades just because I could do all those at a middle level. And it wasn't until I gave myself permission to dislike doing web design or business cards or flyers or whatever it might be, that I could then focus on the stuff I did like. And I suppose in that transitional period where actually what I really like, the first thing that got me really interested in doing stuff for myself was doing vintage logo templates for people. Which I'd give away either for free or I'd sell them. And that was different. And I did actually get a couple of jobs because I did my own vintage templates, or I did a vintage logo off my own back. So, I think, for me, seeing that transition that came out of it was like, actually the things that really have changed my career, changed my business, have been the things that come off my own back rather than anything that's come through the door traditionally. Does that make sense?
Speaking of untraditional things with logo templates, funny random thing I did. I was selling logo templates, and then I decided to make a business, and I put it up on Fiverr, and I was just like, I'll make you like a logo, no changes, you get what you get for $5. This was like in the first month.
Did you get any work?
Business. I got tons of it. There's so many logos out there I made out of these templates that are just complete decent work.
I got really desperate, and I've still got the folder on my machine actually for what's it called? The 99 designs, design competitions. And I was like, I've got to try something.
How many did you win of those? I did that too.
None. I got to the final of one, and then suddenly they started it again, and I was like, oh man.
I won 5. I actually thought I was going to make a living from it.
Can I give you my little humble brag? So this was like how I got started, was doing those competitions, and it wasn't 99 designs, it was a similar site though. And I remember at first I won none of them, and then it would be like 1 out of every 10, and then it would kind of slowly creep up. But obviously when you're winning 1 out of 10, your hourly rate is like 1 cent.
Exactly.
But I think by the end I was winning like 50% of them.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
that was when I was like 14, 15 kind of thing. And so I was like, this is starting to, like, obviously it's still a terrible hourly rate and not a nice way to work, but all of that was quite formative. But anyway, going back to younger Ian for a sec, I don't want to have like killed it with my super boring hypothetical example of like the day-to-day. What I truly believe though is moving the needle should be put ahead of everything else, to the point where you prioritize that as much as possible without sabotaging the day-to-day stuff which you need to do to pay the bills.
Yeah, I feel that
makes sense. So literally, like, whatever you can do, condense your work that pays the bills down into less time, like cut some stuff out if it really doesn't matter, and put absolute top of the totem pole the stuff which is going to move it forward a step.
Yeah. I think, if you're in a place where you're just not enjoying what you're getting in, you aspire for something else, is that just do the stuff that's paying the best.
Yep.
And make
sorry, finish it, but something popped in my head.
Do the stuff that's earning you the most amount of money for the least amount of work, so that then you can invest more into doing, trying other things, trying, that plan you said about, getting in contact with agencies or getting in contact with businesses. But know that it won't be it's not an easy transition. It takes time. It takes a lot of boring work, right? But
it's work, right?
Yeah.
If it was easy or comfortable, everyone would do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, super quick. There was a business book I read a while back about growth, and it basically showed your business like a factory output line. So think of like the little treadmill type thing with the box in the factory that moves through the machine that puts paint on the box and it keeps moving, right?
Yeah.
And it talked about your business being in various stages. So essentially it was kind of like acquisition, like how you're finding your customers, how you're converting them into being customers, the process they go through there, and then retention. So like how many of them are sticking around, and they call it like customer throughput. So essentially it's how many customers are you moving through this machine and how many kind of keep looping back around with the retention. So how that would apply to your design business is you need to write down what you're doing at each stage, and then you try and find the weak link and fix it. So instead of trying to fix the whole cycle, you focus on the weakest area. So if it's that actually you're getting quite a lot of customers in, you're doing a good job, but none of them are sticking around because they never need you again. Like, for example, if you're doing it for brides, it would be a one-off job, but they never need you again. Like we said with Teresa when she's on the show. So you'd have a retention issue. So then all of your energy and your proactive time would go on fixing that part. So it would be like, okay, I need to fix my retention. So I'm going to shift from brides to wedding organizers because it's the same kind of work as I'm already nailing. But now I've got a constant stream of new customers. So there's not the retention issue because my client becomes the wedding organizer. You get it? Or if you're doing the work great, and when you get clients, they stick around because they love you, and that's all good. But you're not really attracting new clients and you haven't in a while, well, then you need to go and market yourself, pitch to people, approach people, etc. So you need to figure out where your weak link is. And instead of trying to fix 100 things at once, you go all in on trying to audit and fix that thing.
Good advice.
And simply by taking a step back and looking at the whole picture and actually getting it out of your head and writing it down, that gives you an opportunity to be like, okay, there's some actual steps I can take and there's some things going wrong, rather than just that blinkered day in, day out, like, well, I'm just doing the design work and nothing's changing, but I'm going to keep doing the design work.
Yeah. I think for me, I think I was overwhelmed by, I was just constantly trying to churn out the work, the best quality I could, and, within the time. I suppose my weaknesses were taking on jobs that had a ceiling of how much could be charged for. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like someone locally were not going to spend much on business cards and then being printed.
My advice would be go and listen to our advice and your own advice to Meg and Teresa and everyone, because that's a very common issue. But we've definitely kind of given advice ourselves, and I know it's hard to take that advice yourself. Like a lot of what we say, I know it to be true, but it doesn't mean it's easy. But that's not an impossible conundrum to be fixed. Like you can up your prices.
I think you're in that space. You're in that space where you've got the pressures of, it's not the family being the pressure, but the pressure of the fact that you need to provide. And so any work that you don't get because you're charging too much, you feel like, oh no, that's money I could have got and I just out. And it is very much an emotional.
Yeah.
Like we were talking.
Pressure.
I can't afford not to have this job, even if it's less money.
It's the classic thing. Like we have stuff internally as a company where it's basically like, I am so busy and stressed, I don't have time to spend 2 hours to fix the whole process. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, I don't have time to save myself time, or I don't have time to actually improve things and make myself happier. I just think you've got to make the time. So, is it worth doing overtime of an hour a night or 2 hours a night for a couple of weeks to actually get the stuff sorted and kind of snap yourself out of the habit?
Yeah, I also think it's a good thing to point out that even if you are doing the small jobs for the guy down the road, his logo and his business card, he can only afford X, then only spend that amount of time doing the work. In other words, don't over. I don't know. I know it's difficult because
that is hard, because I know that
very hard, because I also suffer from that. Yeah. But it is at the end of the day. Cliff was always the voice of reason in my head. Like, you're running a business, not a charity, and you have to eat. So so he can't afford X, but you're giving him something, for more than you can actually afford yourself. Then he's actually scoring and you losing, kind of thing. So yeah. You just got to remember that.
And even if you'd like, you could template yourselves. So, like template, make stuff for you that can make your process quicker if you're not.
Exactly. Completely.
But it's always that thing. It's that upfront investment of time to save time down the line.
Yeah. And actually, the product that turned my business overnight from being a side project to the main income was one of the products that saved me time, because I was trying to post regularly on Instagram and I needed something to add like the texture to it. And I spent ages doing it just for myself so I could save time every day doing it. And it ended up being really successful and changing my business. So, you never know what will.
And funnily enough, the thing that did that again for you was this new product.
Yeah. So, and they both help people. So there's obviously a little bit of wisdom in that.
Yeah, always think how you can bring value to others.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Ian, for sharing, younger Ian.
That's all
right. Sorry, we all got the giggles at the start of this episode. And
that was good.
Yeah, I hope it was useful to everyone at home.
Do anyone who's in a similar situation that I was then, feel free to get in contact and ask us any questions on that, because I know the feeling of what it's like to be in that situation. Sometimes it feels really, really hard, and know that you're not alone.
Sorry, I just got reminded of the laughs. My brain is like, don't laugh when he says something serious about how hard it was.
It was a tale of woe. But do reach out. Honestly, all four of us have been there. Like it brought back memories, honestly. And we'd love to do anything we could to help. So don't be afraid to reach out. And on that note, we will see you next time. Bye from us.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that you're feeling inspired to take a step back from your design business and improve how things are working for you. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, as well as Spotify if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the absolute world if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is still one of the best ways for your fellow designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, right here on The Honest Designers Show.